Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome back for part 2 of this interview with Dustin Eskelson.
So, episode 2.
Episode 2. It's been a while.
Okay, so this is cool. I want to ask you, we're going to start here and then we'll see where we go once again.
Okay.
There's been an interesting interview recently where Ross Coulthart interviewed Lou about something called the Operation Interloper, which is some kind of a process that they say existed where that they would lure in UAP and then disable them with some kind of an electromagnetic pulse weapon.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of this before? I mean, not through MUFON necessarily, but just have you heard of this kind of a thing?
Yes. And this goes back to Mount Wilson Ranch. It is believed that possibly one of these operations was at Mount Wilson Ranch.
Wow.
So when Jeff McBurney purchased the ranch, he had no idea about the history of it. He said he just gotten through a divorce and he kind of wanted a cool place that him and his buddies can hang out on. And this is like the coolest place ever. It's beautiful. It's open. They already have rooms for people to stay. They have a big bar. And I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. So when he was in a meeting with Bigelow said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that property that I'm selling to you, there's a portal there.
Get out
on the mountain."
Really?
Yeah, and Jeff McBurney said he just kind of went, "Oh, okay, whatever." Like he kind of thought he was just some crazy dude,
Yeah.
right? He's like, "Okay, whatever." Since then, and he's gotten a lot of stories from different people, and one of them is the reason they were building there and building stuff underground is they knew a portal was there, and they could kind of tell and predict when one of these vehicles or UFOs would come out of this portal. And they would knock it out of the air with whatever devices they kind of use. So he was saying, yeah, you have Roswell, which might have been just an accident and stuff like that. But he goes, Mount Wilson might have been an intentional Roswell.
Yeah.
Meaning they're seeing these craft come out and they're using some sort of devices to knock them out of the air and then either recover the biologics and of course the craft, which is really what the military wants. They want that technology. He said once he was... him and his girlfriend were sleeping there. And in the middle of the night, he heard this horrible sound. Like it woke him up out of a dead sleep. And he said, I can't tell you what that sound was. Like I can't describe it. But he said, I imagined when I walked out my front door that I would just see a crashed jet airplane like right next to my house. And he went out there and he didn't see anything. And he was like, what the hell? And then he got in contact with some other person. I better not say he was affiliated with, that said, oh yeah, that's one of those craft that came through. And he told him the sound and he goes, did it sound like this? And he played him a clip and he goes, that's it. That's the sound. And so it sounds like a lot of these craft have been popping in and out of certain areas and the government probably has some way to determine when that happens. And they're able to either record it and then of course, possibly knock them out of the air. And there's certain lore that goes back to like Bigelow. Some people theorize that maybe he was trying to do that as well. They talk about a lot of people talk about, hey, when you bought the place, they were telling Jeff, do you still have all those freezers there on the property? And Jeff was like, no, what are you talking about? They go, yeah, you don't have all those like giant freezers that Bigelow bought. And he's like, no, we don't have any freezers. And they started looking into it more. And the belief is that, yeah, they were trying to knock one of these devices out of the air. And then if it has any bodies or biologics in them, you want to hurry and throw them in a freezer to preserve them. So once again, these are all theories and hearsay. I don't know what's true. However, if, Lou Elizono's talking about certain things and there's been enough evidence, and I truly believe that, yeah, if the government wanted to get their hands on this, they would have no quandaries or second thoughts about, let's just knock one out of the air.
Yeah.
Whatever's inside, we don't care if it dies or lives. We'll study that as well, but we really want the craft. We want that technology. It's sort of in their mindset. I think it's for the greater good,
Right.
even though you're essentially committing murder
Yeah.
from a different species, like that's highly intelligent, way more intelligent than you.
Yeah, that's asking for
So
trouble.
that is asking for trouble. Absolutely. So,
My.
so yeah, that's just some of the stories about Mount Wilson Ranch. Some of the theories as far as that goes. Some of the other theories with the Howard Hughes is that he was building some prototype for some sort of jet or some aircraft that maybe had some sort of reverse engineering from craft that they've had before, and so they decided to do it underground. This is where it ties in. It's interesting. He was telling me that Howard Hughes had an assistant, a secretary, and she told stories about being in this bunker underneath the earth, like a mile deep,
Wow.
and that they said there was like this huge area underneath, and she didn't really elaborate much about it. So he goes, while he's telling me the story, and I don't know if you know this guy or not, his name's Earl Grey Anderson. He's the state director of South Carolina, or not South Carolina, Southern California, MUFON. Very nice guy, very knowledgeable. While he's telling me this story, I know Earl a little bit. I've talked with him and I've seen his interviews. His mother was a secretary to Howard Hughes. So in my
Really?
head, I go, is he talking about Earl Grey Anderson? That's weird. So while I'm talking to Jeff, he goes, yeah, and through Katie Page, who's another MUFON person. She used to be the state director for Colorado. Amazing person. She said something about the Southern California state director, and out loud, I just go, Earl Grey Anderson. He goes, yeah, that's the
Wow.
one. And I go, really? So he tells me that, and I immediately went back to the room after I talked with him, and I emailed Earl, and I go, dude, you need to get down to Mount Wilson. Like, they might be talking about your mother. And so Earl wrote me back, and he said that his mother talks about how when he was a kid, she worked for Howard Hughes, and she said that there was an area that they would go down that was a mile
No
deep in the
way.
earth below the desert, she said. And she said there was a city beneath. She said it had its own like shops. It had its own barber shop, in which he said in parentheses they knew exactly how to do her hair, and she liked getting her hair done there. It had a movie theater. They would drive around on like golf carts underneath
What?
there. And so for many decades, he's trying to figure out what his mom was talking about. She was very quiet about certain
Yeah.
things, and every now and again she would slip and say something that really perked his ears. And so one of the theories is that Howard Hughes maybe had his hand in building that area underneath and was building some sort of top secret aircraft.
Wow. Well, here's the crazy thing. A structure like that, if it exists under there, would somebody really just leave it abandoned? I mean, or let's say the
Right.
government. If the government knows something's like that, would they really? I can't imagine they wouldn't still try to utilize that. So it's,
I agree.
yeah.
I think
I'm not
I
saying we
thought
would
about
know
this.
about it. Like, it would be a secret, right? Because it benefits
Correct.
the government to keep something like that, but not let anybody know. So
Yeah. And I wonder if it was because to create something that big, a city a mile deep under the earth, it's got to take a lot of resources, a lot of money.
yeah,
And at some point, that money may have got shut off, or maybe it got found out that, hey, we've been here way too long. Someone's going to figure out what we're up to. Maybe we'll abandon it. Maybe we'll come back. But the problem is those people stay secretive. Some of them die off. People buy the land. And then now it's like, well, now you just have this giant city under
yeah,
the earth that's abandoned, really. Or maybe they just crumbled it all, broke it all down, and filled it in. And now when Jeff continues to dig, maybe he'll continue to find weird, wacky stuff like railroad tracks and all this weird stuff in the ground, and old
yeah.
chandeliers and electrical wire and
What?
old car engines and stuff like that. So it's fascinating. And so man, Jeff McBurney, and he's really digging. Like some people, I know on Skinwalker Ranch, they're afraid of digging because people have been
Yeah,
hurt and there's a lot of electromagnetic energy. And even Jeff, he's been told by a million people, you need to wear a hazmat suit when you're digging. You need to take these supplements, and you do this and this. And Jeff's really one of those guys who's just like, it's my land. I'm going to do what the hell I want to do with it. And I love that
yeah,
about him. I love Jeff McBurney. I think he's one of these guys who's really digging for the truth, literally, not
yeah.
just figuratively. and he's very open about it. And him and Nicole, his girlfriend, are just amazing people, and I just wish him the best. And I want them to succeed, and I want them to sort of uncover whatever they're going to uncover, because I think it needs to be uncovered at this point.
Could you imagine if he finds something like that under there? Wow.
Yeah, that would be nuts.
That would be.
And hopefully he calls me. You better call me, Jeff.
I know, right? Jeez. It's crazy. Well, I mean, there's there's theories that there's tunnels running all over underneath this country that are connecting different places, like Dugway and other places. So
you read my mind. As soon as you said tunnels, my mind instantly went to Dugway. So yeah.
I remember seeing a short news story a bunch of years back where they went into some of the tunnels. I mean, of course, they didn't go through all kinds of tunnels, but it was clearly tunnels that were made, and it was interesting to see it. I'll have to see where I can remember where that was.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Was it near Dugway?
It was in Dugway.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was in Dugway. In fact, I remember the story. They were like, some people wonder if there are tunnels under here. Well, let me show you what we know. And it was literally a news, somebody from the news, like they invited them in to do this. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
There's enough stuff on the top of the ground that makes us believe, there's enough ventilation on top of the ground. You go, okay, this ventilation isn't on top of a roof of a building. It's like flat on the ground. So there's got to be something underneath. And Dugway is one of those mysteries that I don't know if we'll ever get the truth, and it's been regarded as Area 52, and I think there's a lot of truth behind that. I think there's a lot of stuff that has gone on there, and I've spoke with certain MUFON like witnesses that have submitted cases that have either been involved with working on Dugway's contractors or this and that.
Interesting.
And the common story is it's insanely secretive.
Yeah.
Like I heard one story where you can't even. Like you can bring a cell phone on there, but they have radio jammers. So you can't even use your cell phone while you're there, right? You can't call or anything. And they have designated areas where you need to go if you need to call. And I imagine they're monitoring that as well. And it's just very secretive. And I don't remember the book. It was one of those books that just had a bunch of stories out of Utah. And it talked about, you can look this up. This actually happened. It wasn't too long ago. They actually had to shut down Dugway. They wouldn't let anyone in or leave. For I forget how many hours. And when it came back out, they said, the reason we shut it down is we had, I want to say it was a quarter of a teaspoon of anthrax that was missing. They were doing inventory.
Yeah.
So, and I guess they found where it was or whatnot. But the whole speculation was that truly what happened is why it shut down. And so one of the things it talks about in the book was that there was a Russian satellite, whether it was spying or not, was kind of looking at that area. And during that same time, there was a huge spike in radiation for whatever reason. So the speculation is that just a smoke screen? Like what happened there that they shut the place down? Was it really because they lost a quarter teaspoon of anthrax, which is very deadly stuff? I can see them doing that. However, with all the bullshit that they've tried to push through, and Dugway's tried to push through a lot of bullshit on the public, including the 60s when they killed all those sheep.
Right.
And then to this day, they've never admitted it. They paid them.
Right.
They paid them all this millions of dollars, and they're like, "Yeah, we had nothing to do with that, but we'll still give you all this money."
Yeah.
but it just makes you wonder, because I don't think the government has a long history of saying, "Hey, look over here. This is what happened." And meanwhile, all this other stuff's going on over here. And Dugway's fascinating. And part of me doesn't want to get too deep into Dugway, because I don't want the Men in Black showing up to your house and being like, "What are you talking about? Stop saying this. You're on a podcast. Who's this Tony guy?
I know, whatever happened to him."
Yeah.
Oh, man. Everybody out there, we didn't say any of this.
Exactly. None of it.
Oh, man. Hilarious. Well, look, as we talk about a lot of these things, it actually reminds me of Steven Greer, right? You know who he is. And he's been saying some things for a very long time that some people thought were just way beyond, right? But as we hear some of these stories and some of the things that are coming out, we continually are moving closer to the things that Steven Greer has been saying is going on for 20 years. So I wonder, I mean, he's gotten a bad rap for a while for going pretty extreme on some things, but it makes you wonder, like, I mean, he's had some pretty serious people on his corner that he's come out as, what's the word I'm looking for? Just whistleblowers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's interesting. We hear some of these things, and it's really there's we're taking down the UFOs maybe, and he's been saying this for a long time.
Right.
Yeah. So we're getting closer to Steven Greer. Yeah.
Steven Greer, he has said a lot of things, and some of them I'm like, as open-minded as I am, I kind of go, huh?
Yeah.
Wait, what? But I will say that anyone that's willing to say, hey, something's going on and we need to look at this, even if it's not as extreme as maybe what he's saying, it gets people to look into it and look into the phenomenon and what's been going on. So I applaud people for that. And I don't mean to be one of those people that the ends justify the means. Because I do believe that what Steven Greer is saying, he believes it true, and he's probably getting some sources that tell him these kind of things. And he's probably right about some of these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think psychologically, maybe I don't listen to a lot of what he says because it does seem very dark. And even though I don't trust the government, it even goes into the further area where it's like, man, the government's almost like evil and they don't have our best interests at heart and things like that. And sometimes you go down those rabbit holes and you just kind of get depressed. So maybe that's why psychologically I don't look into a lot of his stuff. However, I do think he does have his fan base, and he does have CE5, which I do think there is something to. I do think that people can manifest and sort of bring in things. I think they're sort of tuning their energy in a way that's allowing them to see things and bring things to them. So I got no problem with that. And I got no problem with Steven Greer.
Well, and as we talk about tuning in and stuff, one of the things that Lou Elizondo said in his book was the Kudete Putamani. That is a part of your brain that he says is like an antenna. So he's talking about, in this part of the book, he's talking about remote viewing, which I really was surprised to see that he has some experience in that. That's interesting to me. But he talks about the fact that everybody can do this, he says, and that there is this part of our brain that I'm sure I butchered what it's called, Kudete Pudamanti or something.
Sure.
He says is like the antenna of our brain. And so anyway, we're talking about Steven Greer and this, and maybe there is a way to tap into stuff. And, once again, maybe there's some truth to a lot of these different things. We know that Steven Greer has some success with that S5. Is it S5? Is that what it is?
CE5.
Yeah.
C5.
So, and then this remote viewing thing's a real thing. So.
Yeah. And when you talk about antenna, that's the way I look at it, because I look at it like those old school radio dials where you literally turn the knob and the needle goes down like that. So my needle's sort of stuck in a certain place. I'm not someone, I've never really had paranormal experiences growing up. I've never had UFO experiences growing up. But so many people that do, I think they're either born with it or they're gifted with this ability. Right. And they're able to move that needle and tap into whatever frequencies is going on, because frequencies are going on all around. It's like all the radio signals are going on at the same time. It's up to the radio to focus on that frequency and tune it in. And certain people just have the ability to move that needle, whether they know they're moving it or not, and they're able to experience things. So a lot of people in the paranormal community talk about seeing spirits and ghosts and hearing voices all the time from deceased people. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there going, I'm not getting anything. My radio's broken. Yeah. It's stuck on one channel, and it's this reality, or what we perceive to be reality. They're able to move that needle. I think remote viewing is the same thing. There's people that, I think everyone has that ability and you can work at it, but there's some people that are just more in tune with that. And I can tell you personally, I took a remote viewing class.
Oh, wow.
there's a MUFON investigator. His name's Chris Harmon, and he does remote viewing classes, and it's free for any like MUFON members,
Wow.
and he charges a little bit for any non. So I was taking it, and I can tell you, Tony, I'm not a natural. I was really bad at
Right.
it. But we would get what's called a target. His assistant would pick a picture of something or an object and give it a target, which is, it can be anything, just the letters. It could be like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 2, 4, 7, 5, 8, 6, whatever it is. So one time we're doing our assignment, and the next time we had class, how we do it is we'd go around the room and everyone would read their notes on what they had. So this one lady goes, God, I'm seeing like an alternate world where there's beings on there that aren't humans, and for some reason I'm seeing them like trapped in like a rectangle. They're in some sort of rectangular box, and she starts describing stuff, and it's kind of like our world, but not. There's like things on there, and then the last thing she said is, and I'm seeing a like a controller, like a PlayStation controller, right?
Yeah.
So everyone laughs, right? It goes from other worlds to PlayStation controller. We're like, ha, funny,
Yeah.
funny. We get to the part where we reveal what the target is, and the lady showing the target, you could see her eyes like bug out of her head, and she goes, "This is what it is." It was a picture of a Nintendo Switch that's rectangular with the buttons on the side, and there was a picture of these beings on it, but not like aliens. They were almost like animal figures that were supposed to be human in like a real world where there was like an ocean next to them and like plants and stuff like that. And the whole class was like, holy shit. Like, she nailed it. She got it like right on the money, to the point where I was like, man, did she pay this person to give her the target? Like, how? Like, I was way off. I was talking about nonsense. And she was like, yeah, it was just like right on the money. So before class one day, I was just asking her, like, how?
Yeah.
Like, in my head, I go, is it just like is it some supplement you take? I'm looking for that American way of just give it to me easy. I want it done easy. And she goes, no, I've always had sort of intuitions, and she's always been like into medium stuff. But she goes, I've also had to work at it for like 10 years. Like, she's been doing remote viewing for 10 years. And it's just like anything else. She told me, you do a target and you do your process and you write it down and you take notes. And then when you see what the target is, you may get a part of it right. So how and why did you get that one part right? And the things you got completely wrong, why did you get those wrong? And so you really have to focus on that. It's almost like working out. Like, hey, I want to get my biceps big. I want to get this certain part of my body big, or I want to lean down certain ways. You really have to start and really hone in on it, and it becomes a skill. It becomes a skill set that you can do. So I do believe, like you were saying with Lou Elizondo, talking about how everyone has this ability. They do. However, you have to work at it. But yeah, remote viewing is fascinating. I do think there's a lot to it, especially after taking that course and seeing people who, I was just wasting everyone's time apparently, but everyone else was. There were some people in it that would really nail things, and you just go, "What? Come on!" And so, yeah, the remote viewing is endlessly fascinating, and I think there's a reason that they were using it in the government for decades.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have. I think they would have shut it down after a couple of years if there wasn't any sort of validity to it.
Well, and it wasn't just us; it was the Russians too. Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, look, I've always wanted to take a course to see what it's like, just to see what that protocol is. Right? Is there a step-by-step process and all that stuff? And I always thought that would be neat to experience that. So I'm going to keep my eyes open for something like that, because I think it'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. There's a lot on YouTube. You can actually look up YouTube. There's some really good teachers. Yep.
Interesting.
Remote viewing. And the other one that would be awesome, but you got to really work at it, is trying to have like an outer body experience. That would be dope. That would be awesome.
I'd be afraid I couldn't get back in though.
100%. And everyone that does that says the same thing as you, Tony. Yeah. They a lot of when they first start doing it, they panic. So when they talk about the first outer body experiences there's this inherent doom and sort of evil when they're outside their body.
Yeah.
And they have to they panic and sometimes will hurry and return in their body because they're like, whoa, that felt really evil and not right. It felt like I was in danger. They have to really work at getting past those feelings in order to continue to wander, as I would call it. I don't know, maybe there's a technical term, but literally go outside your body and go outside the house and wander the world. And some people just have it. I know I've talked with experiencers, especially ones that have come in contact with like beings. I was talking with one lady who used to astral project all the time when she was a kid after she came in contact with a being. And I'm a pretty avid meditator. I've been doing it for like 15 years. And I was just asking her, when it comes to sort of like spirituality things, what do you do? And she goes, I do a lot of yoga and meditating. So I go, what technique meditation do you use? I was just curious. And she goes, what do you mean? And I go, is it like mantra meditation? Is it transcendental? Like what kind of She goes, I don't know. Usually what I'll do is I'll think of a color and I'll just focus on it. And next thing you know, I'm like floating outside my body.
Really?
And I instantly became jealous because it seems very easy for her. But yeah, some people just have that ability. Near-death experience people do as well. I mean, that's what it is, right? Near-death, most of them see themselves outside their body looking at them dying. And so yeah, it's an endlessly fascinating thing, but you can get there. You just have to really work on it. And there's places like the Monroe Institute and all these other places that can sort of try to teach you.
Monroe Institute. That's what I was thinking of. I knew there was a place somewhere that does some training in that area. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's Bob Monroe. I could be wrong on that, but anyways, he was sort of like a traveling salesman, and he started having outer body experiences, and he didn't know why. And then eventually he was able to sort of like hone that skills.
Yeah.
And he was one of the guys that actually taught some of the people that were doing remote viewing for the government. Yeah.
Crazy stuff, man.
It's nuts. It's fun to think about.
Well, there were a couple things I wanted to talk about before we end today.
Sure.
Couple cases, and I also wanted to talk about Phenomicon a little bit, like your thoughts and stuff like that, because there was a remote viewing session there actually. But which way should we go? What do you think?
Whatever you want, Tony. Okay. Whatever your brain wants answers for. Let's do it.
Remote view what people want.
Yeah. Read my mind.
Okay, so let's. I think it'd be best to end up with the cases. So let's just shoot through some Phenomicon real quick. I'm just curious about your feeling on what you experienced there. I know Phenomicon has been around this was the 4th year. This was my first time there. I really enjoyed it. And there was really a lot to take in there. I was pretty impressed. Now, there were 4 days. I think the first day you were on a panel. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I missed that. Darn it. It was tough to get there because I was on vacation and I had to really tell my wife, I need to do this.
Yep. You're right.
And so I left a little early from vacation, but it was well worth it.
Very cool.
Your panel. What happened there? Can you tell us about who was on the panel? Was it a MUFON panel or what was it?
Paranormal detective. So he was the one that was emceeing it. It was Don Mitchell, who's actually Shoshone, Native American, and he's been on like he's Native American, and he was on Skinwalker Ranch, talking about that. A lot of knowledge about sort of the heritage there and the history, which I'm fascinated by. You had Jessica Blunt, who is an experiencer in the area.
Nice.
She was in the Uinta Basin area and had her own experience, and she's continued to have them since then. Very fascinating woman. And I'm trying my hardest. I'm trying to get her as a speaker for the next like MUFON.
That would be cool.
Meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And so I'm trying my best to sort of make that happen. And then you had James Keenan, who I admire so much. He's so amazing. And it was kind of crazy when I read that I was going to be part of that panel. And I actually told James, I go, man, this is like the best honor of my UFO career is being on a panel with you. And then I told him, it's probably the worst honor of your life being on a panel with me, but I'm at least enjoying
Yeah.
this, and we were just joking about that. The panel was good. The panels are a little difficult only because you kind of want to let someone roll.
Yeah.
You kind of want to give someone like a half an hour to kind of roll with things. And so you kind of get a question, and I'm very self-conscious of don't take up all the time. There's all these people
Yeah.
here. But it went as well as a panel could. And I was so honored to be there. And it was sort of out of the blue
Yeah.
that they asked me to be on that, because I know so many people tried to get on there. They try to be part of it.
Yeah.
And when Bridget reached out, I was just like, whoa, of course I'll do it. Like, I didn't even have to think twice. I was going to be there anyways.
Yeah.
Like, and as far as Phenomicon is concerned,
Isn't she sweet? She
I
is
don't
a nice
know.
lady, Bridget.
She's the
Yeah,
best.
She really is.
And I don't know if she has like prior experiences with conventions, because I've been there 3 of the 4 years. I've been second, third, and fourth year. They nailed it like early
Yeah.
on. Usually conventions take 10 to 15 years to sort of crack the code and be like, okay, this is the format that we're going to do it in. This is how we're going to get people here. This is how we're going to get the big names. This is how we're going to get people here. The vendors, the breakout sessions, all of that. They somehow nailed it.
Yeah.
I was there year 2 and I was like, this is perfect. And then year 3, they added those photo op sessions with people where you can, and they have that down to a science. Like there could be a line of 50 people and you're like, oh, it's going to take an hour. And you're up, it takes like 5 minutes. They're like, next, you hand them the phone, you hand them your phone, boom, 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 boom. They just keep doing what is right for a convention. So I don't know what her background is. She must have some sort of background to like nail it that early on.
Yeah.
And really my only complaint is that it's not long enough, because there's so many sessions going on. You have to decide. Like there's times where you had 3 different speakers, one on the main stage, one in a breakout room, one in another breakout room. You're like, God, I want to see all of them. But you really have to make those decisions. And luckily it's going to be around for more years. And my only thing to tell people is get tickets as soon as possible, because they sold out last year. And I have a friend named Jeff who showed up that day just thinking, oh, I'll just, like the last couple of years, just saunter in and buy a ticket while I'm there. And they had to turn him away.
Right.
They're like, yeah, it's sold out. And he's like, what?
Yeah.
Whoa, wait. No. I'm a regular.
Yeah.
So it really is a magical experience. Anyone that has gone there can tell you the same, because I've been to other conventions and they're great. I've been to a lot of great conventions, but no one does it quite like Phenomicon.
Yeah.
And to be able to sell out and get people to go to Vernal, no offense to Vernal, I love it. It's a great city. But to fly into Salt Lake, rent a car, drive 3 hours into Vernal, you really have to have something special for people to either show up and also return.
Right.
Most people are return customers.
Right.
And that is crazy. Like that is so special and unique. If this was happening in Salt Lake City, you wouldn't have to have that much magic. But for Bridget to really pull out the big guns and have all the Skinwalker Ranch people, Nick Pope, David Pallades, like all these big names where you're just like, whoa, like they're here in Vernal in our state. Like it's exciting. You're like, God damn, this is amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And you're right. She brought in some great speakers and there was a good variety too. So you really got a chance to hear a lot of good things. I do agree with you in that one area that I wish a lot of the shared time, meaning where they were multiple presentations in different parts of the building, they pretty much were in 2 time slots. And I wish they did more of that, because there were a couple of people I didn't get a chance to hear. But and I think maybe the only other thing is if you have one speaker doing it 2 or 3 times, it would be good to know what topic they're covering each time. Because like David Pallades, he did Bigfoot, like David Pallades, he did, and it was good.
Is that what he did in the breakout
session?
session?
One, but I would have liked to heard the other one as well.
Okay.
One time, and then he did
breakout
Missing 411 one time, and
right.
But yeah, I think it was great. I mean, to me, I don't.
Right.
Well, who is your favorite presenter? Was there one for you?
Probably, man, it was a toss-up. There was the Cypress Paranormal group. Yeah, they're out of Texas. I think they're actually from Cypress, Texas. I think that's probably the name. Cypress Paranormal Research is what their name is. And it's a family. It's like a father and the 2 daughters.
Wow.
and they grew up in a house that had some really high activity, and so they sort of became investigators. And it was just they were showing us some cool stuff, and they were also going over their gear.
Oh,
And like I said, I'm still trying to learn the ropes for paranormal investigating. So, and it was just fun too. Like the atmosphere in there was kind of like people were asking questions. It was fun. It was informative. It was really amazing.
yeah,
I really like
yeah,
that one. Second one, James Keenan.
yeah,
You will never be disappointed by a James Keenan
yeah.
presentation. In fact, my only complaint is they only gave him an
Mm,
hour. Like he could go on for like 3 or 4 hours, and he goes over the history of the Spanish, the history of the Aztecs, Skinwalker
wow.
Ranch. He's been on he's on Blind Frog Ranch. He's been at Space Wolf Research, and he's a really sort of scientific approach kind of guy.
Yeah,
Like he'll bring that kind of data and that history, and then he mixes it in with the unknown and sort of the things that Native American lore that really makes you think. And he's just so damn good at it.
yeah,
Like he was my favorite,
yeah.
and I heard he's trying to move to Utah from Arizona. I would love to steal him away from
Right?
Arizona.
Yeah,
No offense to the Arizona chapter, but yeah, he's just an amazing dude with an endless mind of
yeah,
knowledge about this area and stuff like that. And yeah, just a good dude too.
yeah.
Just talking with him.
What to me, one of the surprising, in a good way, presenters was Jay Stratton. And the reason why is because he was clearly nervous.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this was his first public presentation in front of people. And it was neat to see that. You could see a very buttoned up military guy trying to relax. But there were times where that very strict military type background kept him too serious. And I thought it was interesting.
Absolutely. You're seeing someone with an incredible amount of knowledge and that the people want to speak, but it really is a skill and something you got to do over and
Yeah.
over again before you get comfortable. And so he was here last year during the conference, and he was on one of the panels, and you could tell he was just kind of squirming, and they would ask him a question. He'd give like a very straight, quick answer, no jokes, nothing. And you could tell he's starting to come into his own.
Yeah.
And I think within a year or two, and especially he's writing a book, so he's going to be forced to
You're
go out
right.
on the road and do the promotions for it. You're going to see him morph into a great public speaker.
Yeah.
He has no choice, and people want him to speak,
Right.
and they kind of want him to slip up and say some things that maybe he shouldn't be saying. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, he was pretty good about making sure that people turned off everything as he started talking.
Yeah. No, he's probably been bit in the ass quite a
Yeah.
few times from higher ups that made him do 100 or 200 push-ups in a row. And
Well, one of the things I thought was really interesting, when he started speaking and he went up on stage, I looked around the room and everybody, even in the same space, UAPs and that sort of thing, stopped what they were doing, even if they were on the side tables, put their book down or whatever down, and they sat there and everybody was watching him very intently. Because I think everybody maybe either they were hoping for him to slip up, but they knew that what's in those 6 inches right there is valuable information. What's going to come out of his mouth, right? It was interesting to see that, to see everybody just stop what they were doing. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think him hanging out with because the Skinwalker Ranch crew, and you can tell it in the first season, everyone's very stiff and they're like, "What? There's a camera on me." But by now, when they do these Phenomicons, they're very loose, they're very friendly, they're very open, and for them to sort of rope Jay into it, I think it's good. They're starting to get him to come out of his shell a bit, and so I think it's awesome.
Well, that panel with the Skinwalker guys was probably my favorite, simply because it was funny. You got to hear some of their personalities. Like, to me, I'm sorry, I think of what's his name now? The guy that's I can't remember his name now. He's over the security at Skinwalker.
Oh, like Dragon?
Dragon. He just seems so uptight all the time. He was pretty funny.
He is. Funny. I think that's sort of a persona that maybe he puts on for the show. Because every Phenomicon, he's sort of like the jokester.
Yeah, it was pretty fun to see that. I was like, wow, not bad. Of course, Travis is seems like a really cool guy, and he's
Yeah.
fun, knows how to present information and
Yep.
everything. And then I liked Eric Bard too. He was more analytical. And then I liked Eric Bard too. He was
Yeah.
more analytical
Bard's
but
awesome.
funny.
Smart dude too.
And really cool to hear their commitment to trying to get to the truth here of what's going on. Analytical but funny. And
I love it. Yeah. And I get that question a lot. I have no sort of insider information. I've never been on Skinwalker Ranch, but people always pull me aside and go, is it bullshit? Is it bullshit? And I have to tell them, and a lot of people are sort of anti the show because they go, oh, they're creating this stuff to get rich. Right.
yeah.
This has been going on in this area for so many years. And also Brandon Fugel owned it for 4 years secretively because he was like, I don't want to be known as the person that's into this because it may ruin my reputation in the real estate business. And there was a producer named TJ Allard who bugged the shit out of him for like a year and a half to get some cameras on the ranch. He was like, I see a show here. And they're like, no, not interested. Finally, he sort of wedged his foot in the door and made the show. And it was sort of very reluctant. And from what I understand, Brandon's whole agreement was, hey, we're not going to fake anything.
Right.
Like, we're really going to show the people what's going on this ranch. And I think it's amazing because people go, oh, it's got to be not true if there's a TV show on it. And my whole thing is, no. You know how much money it takes to own that kind of property, maintain it, hire all these people to do that. I go, you got to offset it somehow.
Right.
And unless you're renting it out or building a hotel for people to stay on, which people would then start shitting on that and saying, oh, you're just trying to sell a hotel to like make people stay there. It's a way to get it out to the public and keep it going. Because if you're a businessman, especially like Brandon Fugel, you understand money in versus money out. There's no... He's very good at that. He has every billboard in Utah.
Doesn't he?
As you drive around. So he understands that if it was at an incredible loss, even though as phenomenal as this place would be, he might just sell it and then the next person buys it. And maybe it's a private company that never shows anything that's going on the ranch, never gives us any sort of information, keeps it to themselves, or the government takes it back again and we get NIDS again, where they do all this research and then they shove it in a filing cabinet and no one gets to see any of that. So I applaud what they're doing. I think it's what you have to do in order to get that information out, and also at least have the money to do all the bring in all the consultants and all the things that they do to test all these things. There has to be some sort of money to offset the loss.
Agreed.
And yeah, I applaud them. I think it's great. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, and I've had not a lot, but a couple people who don't watch it a lot say, "Oh, it's nothing ever happens there," and I'm like, "No, you need to watch this." Like, I'm not a scientist, but I do know there's some things that are really going to change the way science works and physics and stuff, because they're finding stuff that is theory and they're able to measure it. It's amazing what they're doing. So I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, and that just, you just reminded me of, we have believers. So you and I are believers. Yep. There's people that are on the fence and there's people that are sort of not on they're just like, nah, it's all hooey. Yeah. People's testimonies will never change the far scientific minds. However, scientific data may do that. And that's what they're grabbing. They're literally grabbing scientific data and trying to explain it in scientific terms, what's going on, which is very hard to do, but at least they're trying and they're doing it. They're at least showing some sort of data. And I can tell you personally, the only UFOs I've ever seen one was over Skinwalker Mesa. When I was at Space Wolf Research, 2 out of the 3 times I'm there, I've seen some wacky stuff and had some weird experiences. So there is something going on that property. And there's just so many stories of people that were there during the Bigelow area that would sneak on or sneak nearby and see all these things. And I do believe the Shermans who own the ranch and in 96 went to the papers are believable people. Yeah. Everyone you talked to that was in the area knew them, said they were just great people, down to earth, just trying to make a living, blue collar people. And people go, oh, Sherman just made up all this stuff to sell a ranch. He had offers that were more than Bigelow's from families But he said, I will not sell this to another family or people that are going to live here because I do not want them to go through what my
Yeah.
family went through. So he sold it for less money to Bigelow than he could have gotten. And it's just, it's hard. You have the people that really love Skinwalker Ranch. And then sometimes, like, even in MUFON, like, I'll run into people at a convention and they'll be like, oh, yeah, Utah, isn't that where Skinwalker Ranch is at? And you go, yeah. And they go, I don't know anything about that. And you kind of go, how is that?
Yeah.
How is that possible? I don't understand. So maybe I'm living inside my own little bubble inside of the bigger UFO bubble.
Yeah. I'm with you though. Like, I think there's groundbreaking stuff going on here, and it's, I don't think it can be ignored. Like, I have to watch that and see what's happening there, because it's shaping the way we look at everything in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, look, Dustin, I've had you almost 2 hours. I want to get 2 cases in if we can real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
Only because I've been saying it through the episode here.
Yeah.
Everybody, I just want everybody to know how much of a good sport Dustin is. We are approaching 2 hours here.
No, I love it, man. I love being on your podcast.
Awesome.
And I had a fun time the first time. And so thanks for having me as a repeat customer. I don't know if you have many repeat customers, but
I want to catch you every now and then, because this is one of my favorite conversations, is what's going on in this space. So, well, did you have any cases you could cover? I've got a couple case numbers, if that's helpful.
Yeah, hit me.
These are 2 that you did cover in the meeting we had. So
sure.
The first one I was thinking is from September 2022, 128404.
Okay. Salt Lake, the Triangle. Okay. So this case was investigated by Brian Lindley. He was the state director for me. He was the one that taught me everything. He was the one that trained me. This is one of those cases that is amazing. It's absolutely fascinating. And maybe when we post the video, we'll have to, or maybe when you post this up, we'll have to post the video with us talking about it. But so in September, let me grab my notes real quick. Yeah, September 16th, 2022, there was a person who was up above downtown Salt Lake, and they were looking at some properties. I think they were in real estate. And they parked their car and they were going to go check out this property, and they see this triangle, this black triangular object just hovering way above downtown Salt Lake. And they're like, this is bizarre. So they began filming it, and very calmly was like, this is the date. This is downtown Salt Lake. This is that triangle. Most times we get videos, people are like, holy effing crap, what's going on? I have to give him credit. And he sent multiple videos. This isn't just a picture. This isn't just one video. There's multiple videos of him filming this giant black object just hovering over downtown Salt Lake. So story goes, he was parked outside a gated community. So a security guard came up to him and was like, hey, can I help you? And he turned around and just said, oh, I'm so-and-so. I'm looking at a property up here. And they just talked for about a minute. And when he turned around, this object was gone. So the video is incredibly compelling. You actually see a jet fly behind it in the background. And it's downtown Salt Lake. It's like right over this insanely populated area where thousands of people come in and out every day. I really thought by now we would get another vantage point or another story about this triangle. And maybe it's because people haven't heard about it enough. But I believe that there's someone out there that has it on their cell phone, someone out there that saw it, and we'd love to hear about it. We want that sort of corroborating evidence. And Brian actually sent it to, we have a photo analysis team within MUFON. He sent it to one of them. And their analysis was that confirmed that this object is much larger than any sort of kite or drone. He estimated that if it was at 1 mile away, the object would be 28 by 34 feet. And at 2 to 3 miles away, it would be 70 by 100 feet wide. And this isn't, there was also a little side note on this. There's also other cases like triangles. And one of them was in downtown Salt Lake in 2012 summer. I actually received this case last year. So it was a little old. We couldn't really look up much data on it, but she was driving home. She was going towards I-15. She got off work a little early from downtown Salt Lake. She was trying to beat the rush hour traffic. She was by, I believe, Pioneer Park going I-15, and she was stopped at a stoplight, and it was kind of overcast that day. And she looks up through a windshield, and she sees a triangular object just hovering there. And she was married to someone who was in the military. She used to live on military bases, and she told me it was bigger than an F-16 and possibly as big as a 737.
Wow.
And she said it was either very reflective because she could see the clouds on it, or it had some sort of cloaking ability because it looked like just an outline of a triangle and there was like clouds on it. She drives for 1 block, sees this thing for 1 block. It tilts to the left and goes off into the distance and just disappears. So these triangular cases are endlessly fascinating, not only because, what the hell was it, but there's also that theory of, is this a government experimental vehicle? And they talk about the TR-3B, which could be a reverse engineered craft, anti-gravity craft that people see a lot. They always talk about 3 lights on the underside, 1 at each point or vertices, and they're either red or white, solid, not blinking. And some of them do have a porthole light, which is like right in the middle. Very silent. They usually don't hear any noise from them. And a lot of times they don't appear to see any like rivets or welds, and they're very dark black. They think that they use some of that paint that absorbs like 99.9% light, or they have some sort of cloaking ability, which they're able to sort of look like whatever the background is. And MUFON database is just filled with them. And I went over those 2 cases in Florida. We had another case in Utah in 2013 in Wellington, Utah, where a man saw one late at night, followed by 2 black military helicopters. He even described seeing that the pilots had white helmets on in the helicopters, and he waved to one of them, and to his complete amazement, one of them waved back, which is amazing. So yeah, that case is amazing, and it's one of those ones that I knew I had to show at that. It's one of those eye candy ones where you actually see something. It's not just a story.
Yeah, I love that story, or that case. That's cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And one more. I was thinking.
Sure.
It's July 24th, Beaver, Utah, 137885.
Cool. Yeah. So 137 Beaver. I think it was July 18th, just this last July. So hot off the presses. We got 2 really good cases out of southern Utah, 10 days apart. So the case comes in, and the synopsis is a husband and wife were driving. The husband was driving. The wife was in the passenger. And they were going northbound next to the town Beaver. And the wife sees this object fly past the car, like this big object just fly past the car. It didn't make a sound, and it was so big and so fast it freaked her out. She whipped her head around and saw it for 1 more split second. It was just gone. So luckily they had a dash cam, and this was a really nice dash cam. So it had a time and date stamp on it, which most of them do. It had the GPS coordinates on it. It had how fast they were traveling. And also the dash cam could record up to 4K quality, and they had it set to 2K, which is in between high def and 4K, and they had it set to 60 frames per second. So most dash cams will do 30 frames per second. So this one's getting twice as much data. And it could connect to their phone. So the next time they pulled over, they pulled 4 screenshots, not video, screenshots, and submitted it with the case. So I'm looking at these screenshots, and it's kind of hard to tell from a screenshot. I assigned it to Ben, who's the new assistant state director. I go, hey, this might be a bug or a bird. I'm just going to let you know. But see if you can get the video for it. He goes, absolutely. So he talks with the witness, talks with the husband, talks with the wife. The wife tells him that this thing was flying by so fast that it really kind of shook her. And the husband didn't see it at all. And so he gets the video, and there's a timestamp on it. So he's playing it, and he texts me, and he goes, hey, I got the video, but I'm playing it, and I don't see an object. Yeah. I go, how is that possible? We have the screenshots. What are you talking about? So I go, send me the video. So while he's sending it to me, he texts me and goes, oh, dude, I had to pull it into a video editing software and go frame by frame. You can see it.
Wow.
So this object, and you were there when I played the video as is. There's probably like 20 people in the audience, and only 2 rose their hand up. Only 2 saw it. So if you go frame by frame, we only have 10 frames in the video where we can see this object. So we have 1/6 of a second that we can see this thing. So frame by frame, the first, I think it's like 5 or 6 frames, you have to zoom in to see it. It looks like, and once again, when you have a video, it's kind of hard to tell distance because you only have one field of view. It's not like 2 eyes. If you cover one of your eyes, you're not going to have depth perception as good as depth perception. So this thing appears in the clouds for a couple frames, and then during 4 frames, you see 2 objects, possibly 3, and then one of the dots disappear, and then this thing flies past the driver's side window. So I was like, man, there has to be a way to figure out possibly speed on this thing, because this thing was hauling. So in the dash cam, you can actually see the road ahead, you can see the cars ahead, and at one of the frames, frame 8, it looks like it's in front of a trailer and in between a diesel that's up ahead. So I'm like, how do we figure out distance here? So I go, there's lines on the road. I wonder if there's regulations on those lines on the road. So now I'm Googling how long are lines on the road. Real boring stuff that Google's like, why am I doing this? I can do more for you. So I find out that those lines are regulatory. They're 10 feet in length, and the gaps in between them are 30 feet in length.
Ding, ding, ding.
So each line and gap is 40 feet. Got
nice
it.
work, right?
Thank you. Yeah. So I calculated 6 of those lines, which would give you 240 feet. Let me do the math there. Yeah, 240 feet. And then I calculated how long that 3 frames would be. So from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, and 10 to 11. And I'm being generous because by the 11th frame, this thing's gone. It's behind the truck.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm going to count that anyways. So we have 3 frames, which is 1/20th of a second, 0.05. And I calculated how many feet the truck was moving. So we know that from the dash cam. And so in those 3 frames, it moved about 6 feet. And I don't remember the exact number for the... actually, I'm going to pull that up because it's interesting to me. Here we go. So the speed of this thing was 4,680 feet per second. So when you convert that down to miles per hour, you get over 3,100 miles per hour is what we believe this thing was traveling. And I'm being generous because once again, that frame 11, it's already behind the truck and we don't know where it's at. So
that's hauling.
It's hauling. So I told Ben, I go, hey, from seeing those original 4 screenshots, I thought maybe it was a bug or a bird, but I said, there's no way it's a bug. Like, it's way too big to show up on camera. And then I told him this may still be a bird if that bird had a rocket up its ass.
Exactly.
Because there's no way it was moving so fast. And the other interesting is those 4 frames where we have 2 objects. There's like a pin. It looks like a pinprick in the clouds, like a black hole, very tiny. And then this thing appears to the left. We see it. And then that original hole just disappears. That hole stays in the same spot. So it could be a refresh error on the camera. However, when I see refresh errors, they're usually a little more blocky. And also just the movement of the truck would mean that we would see that block move a little bit, but it's stuck in that same area of sky. So I don't think it's a refresh rate. And so the theory is, was there multiple objects there? Or was that hole, that original pinprick, some sort of port or portal that this thing popped out of? Wow. So yeah, it's just, me and Ben talked about it ad nauseum on the phone. And I was just like, dude, this case is awesome. He's like, I know. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just, thank God they had that dash cam. And thank God they had a really nice dash cam that gave us 60 frames per second. We were able to get twice as many frames of that thing. Yep.
Yeah. That's amazing. Do you think in future MUFON meetings that you're going to continue to present some of these? Because this is great stuff.
I would love to. Yeah. There's so many cases. I thought about doing just a presentation of Southern Utah. Yeah. If there's anything I want to hammer home to people is, yes, things are going on in Uinta Basin. Thank God we're looking into that and everything. But please keep your head on a swivel in Southern Utah. Yeah. There's stuff going on down there that is so crazy. So many stories. You dive into that database and you just go, wait, what? And you crunch those numbers between MUFON, you crunch the numbers in New Fork, and you see the actual intensity of the cases. And it's just, Southern Utah is just on fire. It is on fire. And so that's why I told you the first the episode. I think somewhere along the lines we're going to find out an area down there that's highly active, and either the government's already got it under control, or there's going to be a family there that says we don't want to stay here anymore. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on down here.
So what's the thing to remember, everybody? Keep those eyes open. Keep them looking up.
Absolutely,
there's stuff going on. My gosh, I love it. Dustin, you're doing a great job. I'm so excited to know you and to learn about these cases, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing because it's important. It really is.
Thank you, and I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's amazing that you have a podcast and you're getting all this information out there, and it's just fun to shoot the shit with you.
It is, for sure. So as we wrap up here, I want to thank you so much for being on the show again. I want to keep you on for just a minute after we close down for just a couple questions. But for everybody else out there, what can you do? You can find a MUFON chapter near you. If you're in Utah, Dustin, what do they need to do?
Just go to MUFON.com and you can find what state you're in and see what chapter, whoever the state director is. And email them, ask them what's going on, see if you can get on their mailing list and come out to one of these events.
That sounds great. Yeah, I think it's great. People get involved, enjoy it, and learn some stuff because it's happening. There's a lot of strange and unexpected all around us. So remember, keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. And until next time, stay safe.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.